Before binoculars, the world ended sooner, not because the world was smaller, but because the eye was. Human vision has always carried a boundary, a soft one, not marked by lines or walls, but felt all the same. You could walk towards something, step by step, and it would grow clearer. But if you stopped moving, the clarity stopped with you. The world did not come closer on its own. Distance was not an idea, it was a condition. Objects far away existed, but only as suggestions, shapes without detail, movements without certainty. A dark line on the horizon might have been trees, or hills, or clouds resting low. A small figure might have been a person, or an animal, or nothing at all. The eye accepted this uncertainty quietly. There was no frustration in it. It was simply how things were. The world did not offer itself all at once. It revealed itself gradually as the body moved through it. Before tools for seeing farther, the eye worked slowly. It gathered information over time. It relied on light, contrast, and patience. It waited for shadows to shift. It waited for movement to confirm shape. Seeing was not instant. It was a process. You looked, you waited, you looked again. And often, that was enough. Distance created natural endings. A field did not stretch infinitely. It faded into softness. A road narrowed until it became a line, then disappeared. Mountains lost their edges and became part of the sky. The horizon was not a promise of what lay beyond. It was a boundary where detail stopped. The eye did not cross it. This boundary shaped behavior. People did not feel compelled to know what lay far away at all times. Curiosity existed, but it moved at the pace of the body. To know more, you had to walk. To see clearly, you had to approach. Knowledge required effort, time, and often rest. There was no way to stand still and see farther. This mattered. It meant that distance protected things. Events unfolding far away remained distant not just physically, but perceptually. You might hear something before you saw it. A sound carried first, a shout, a horn, wind through trees. The ear often reached farther than the eye. Vision followed later. Because of this, the world felt layered. Not everything demanded attention at once. Near things mattered more because they were legible. Far things remained vague, and vagueness carried no urgency. The eye was selective by necessity. You could not focus on everything, and so you did not try. Observation before binoculars was grounded. It stayed close to the body. You looked at what was near enough to matter. Hands, tools, faces, paths. The immediate environment held priority. Beyond it lay possibility, not information. Distance was not something to conquer. It was something to respect. Standing on a hill, you might see far across land or water. But what you saw was not detail. It was arrangement, light and dark, motion and stillness. The world reduced itself to patterns. This reduction was calming. Without fine detail, the mind did not race. There was nothing to analyze deeply, no small movements to interpret. The far world became background, a stable presence rather than a source of stimulation. The horizon played a quiet role in this. It marked the end of useful sight. Where the ground met the sky, clarity dissolved. The line itself was not sharp. It shimmered. It moved with light and weather. Sometimes it disappeared entirely. The horizon did not invite crossing with the eyes. It invited acceptance. People could stand and look for long periods without feeling the need to act. Watching clouds gather, watching light change, watching distant figures move slowly, too far to read intention. This watching did not create anxiety. It created time. Because nothing was demanded by the far distance, waiting became natural. You did not expect immediate understanding. You allowed moments to pass without resolution. Waiting was not empty. It was filled with stillness. The body learned to remain in place. The eyes softened. Vision widened rather than sharpened. You took in the whole scene instead of chasing detail. This kind of seeing was broad and slow. It did not isolate objects. It absorbed landscapes. Without binoculars or lenses, there was no incentive to narrow focus artificially. You saw what your eyes allowed, and no more. The world decided how much to reveal. This relationship placed the human in a receptive position. You did not command the scene. You encountered it. Distance reinforced humility. There were things you could not know without moving closer. And sometimes, moving closer was not possible. The terrain might be rough. The weather might change. Time might not allow it. So you accepted not knowing. This acceptance shaped thought. It reduced the need for control. You could not verify everything. You could not inspect from afar. You lived with approximation. The mind adapted. Imagination filled gaps gently, without pressure. A distant shape did not require immediate interpretation. It could remain unresolved. This unresolved state did not cause discomfort. It felt natural, because it was natural. Vision was tied to effort. The clearer you wanted to see, the more energy you expended. You squinted, you shaded your eyes, you shifted position. Even these small adjustments reminded you that seeing had limits. The body was involved. Seeing was not separate from posture, breath, or balance. You stood still to steady the view. You rested when tired. The eye did not operate independently of the rest of the body. This integration slowed everything down. You could not consume the world visually while exhausted. Tired eyes closed. Darkness arrived without resistance. Night restored limits even more firmly. Without artificial light, distance collapsed quickly. Beyond a small radius, the world disappeared entirely. The horizon vanished. Only what was near enough to catch firelight remained visible. This closeness shaped nights. They were not filled with distant sights. They were enclosed. The world shrank, and that shrinkage felt safe. You did not need to see far in the dark. You needed to rest. The eye accepted this too. Vision had seasons. Day expanded it. Night contracted it. Neither state was permanent. Neither demanded correction. Without binoculars, no one expected to see across valleys at night. Darkness was not a failure of vision. It was part of the cycle. Distance also shaped memory. You remembered places not as collections of details, but as impressions. A road was long or short. A hill was steep or gentle. A forest was dense or open. Precision was rare. Approximation was enough. This made recollection soft. Nothing was sharply defined unless it had been close. The far world stayed far, even in memory. Because of this, the mind did not overload. It carried only what it had truly encountered. The rest remained abstract. Abstract things are lighter. They do not demand constant attention. The eye, working alone, kept life manageable. Standing still and looking outward did not create a sense of missing information. It created a sense of scale. You understood your place in relation to what you could see. Near and far were clearly separated. There was no illusion of access. You could not see everything, and so you did not expect to. This expectation mattered deeply. It shaped patience. It shaped restraint. It shaped the understanding that some things unfold beyond immediate reach. Observation without approach was common. You watched weather gather. You watched animals move across fields. You watched people approach long before you could see their faces. These moments stretched time. They introduced anticipation without urgency. You knew someone was coming, but you did not know who yet. And that was acceptable. The eye did not rush the reveal. It waited. The horizon again played its role. It offered a place where nothing more could be known visually. Beyond it lay only possibility. The eye rested there often, not to extract information, but to pause. Looking at the horizon was not about seeing something. It was about stopping the act of seeing. The gaze relaxed. Focus softened. Thought slowed. The eye was no longer working to identify or interpret. It was simply open. This openness is difficult to recreate once tools for magnification exist. But before them, it was common. It happened naturally. The world itself encouraged it. Nothing in the distance demanded sharp attention, and so attention spread evenly. The eye did not tunnel. It wandered. This wandering was not distraction. It was rest. Without binoculars, the world did not press itself into clarity. It remained partially hidden, and this partial hiding was protective. You were not overwhelmed by detail. You were not flooded with information. You were allowed to exist within limits. Limits shaped calm. They gave structure to perception. The human eye, unassisted, was honest about what it could and could not do. It did not pretend to offer mastery. It offered experience. Experience arrived at walking speed, at breathing speed, at the speed of waiting. The world seen by the eye alone was not incomplete. It was proportioned. Near things mattered. Far things existed without pressure. The horizon stayed where it was, and the eye, accepting that boundary, found peace within it. This was the visual world before binoculars, a world with edges, a world that did not rush toward the observer, a world that allowed distance to remain distance. And in that allowance, vision stayed slow, grounded, and human. The desire to see farther did not begin as ambition. It began as hesitation, a pause in the body before movement, a moment where the feet did not step forward, but the eyes remained open. There are many reasons not to approach. The ground may be uneven. The path may be unclear. What lies ahead may not welcome you. Distance offers protection. Before any instrument existed to shorten it, distance already held meaning. It was not emptiness. It was space filled with uncertainty. And uncertainty invites both curiosity and restraint. The wish to see farther grew inside that tension, not from impatience, but from caution. To approach something is to commit. To move closer is to accept consequences. The body understands this instinctively. Long before thought intervenes, the body weighs distance. It senses risk. It measures effort. It asks quietly whether movement is necessary. Often it is not. So the eyes linger. Standing still, you look outward. You let the gaze extend where the body does not. This is the beginning of the desire to see farther without moving, not to control, not to conquer, to remain safe while understanding more. Distance allows observation without exposure. You are present, but not involved. You can watch change without being changed by it. You can gather information without revealing yourself. This separation is powerful. It creates a position where the observer remains intact. Fear plays a role here, but not loudly, not as panic, as awareness. Approaching something unknown compresses options. You commit to a direction. You narrow possibilities. You leave behind the safety of not being noticed. Distance preserves choice. From far away, You can still decide to move forward, to turn back, to wait. Seeing farther without moving keeps these options open. This is why the desire was quiet. It did not shout for innovation. It did not demand speed. It simply lingered as a question. What if I could know more without stepping closer? This question appears naturally in many moments, standing at the edge of a clearing, watching figures move across open ground, looking toward the sea. You do not want to interrupt what you see. You want to understand it. The wish is not to enter the scene, but to read it, to read from a distance. This kind of curiosity is restrained. It does not rush forward. It stays behind an invisible line and looks carefully. Curiosity without urgency feels different. It carries no pressure to act, no need to intervene, no expectation of response. You can look, and nothing changes. This creates calm. The desire to see farther was shaped by this calm, not by restlessness. Observation became a way to remain separate, to be present without participation, to watch events unfold without becoming part of them. This separation often brought safety. Animals observe from afar before approaching. People do the same. You watch weather shift before deciding whether to move. You watch others from a distance to understand intention. Distance is not avoidance. It is assessment. Being able to see farther enhances assessment without increasing risk. This is where the desire gains depth. It is not about enlarging the world. It is about extending awareness while keeping the body still. The body, remaining still, preserves energy. The mind, observing, stays alert. This balance feels right. Standing still, looking outward, you occupy a stable position. You are not advancing. You are not retreating. You are holding space. This holding creates a particular kind of silence, not the silence of emptiness, the silence of restraint. Nothing is happening yet, but something could. The eyes focus. The body stays ready. This tension is quiet. It does not vibrate, does not shake. It settles. The desire to see farther lives inside this settled tension. It is patient. It does not demand immediate satisfaction. It accepts waiting. From far away, details are limited. Shapes remain uncertain. But this uncertainty is part of the appeal. It allows interpretation without obligation. You can imagine without committing. You can observe without responding. Seeing from a distance lets the mind wander safely. It fills in possibilities without consequence. The scene remains untouched. This untouched quality matters. Once you move closer, the scene changes. You change it. Your presence alters what you observe. From far away, you remain invisible. Observation without being seen is a powerful position. It offers control not through action, but through absence. You are not part of the equation. This can feel reassuring. It removes responsibility. You do not have to help. You do not have to interfere. You do not have to decide. You only have to look. This kind of looking is quiet and sustained. It does not flicker. It does not jump. It settles into a rhythm. The eyes rest on the distant scene. The body relaxes around stillness. The mind becomes alert but calm. This state is neither passive nor active. It is watchful. Watchfulness does not hurry. It waits. The desire to see farther without moving grew from this watchfulness. It was shaped by landscapes and long distances, open fields, coastlines, plains, places where approach takes time, places where distance is obvious. In such places, the body learns to accept separation. You cannot rush across a valley. You cannot cross water instantly. The eyes do what the body cannot. They travel, but they travel carefully, not with force, with patience. The fear of approaching is not always fear of harm. Sometimes it is fear of change. Approaching something changes your relationship to it. Distance preserves neutrality. From far away, things do not ask you to decide. They simply exist. This neutrality allows observation to remain pure. You are not implicated. You are not involved. You are not required. This freedom is subtle but strong. The desire to see farther was, in part, a desire to preserve this freedom while expanding awareness. To know more without giving something up. To see without stepping into consequence. This desire did not need to be named. It existed in posture, in stillness, in the way people stood and watched, in the way they waited before moving. The eyes lingered longer than the body. That lingering was the signal. The world, at a distance, felt manageable. It did not overwhelm. It did not intrude. It stayed where it was. The closer something is, the louder it becomes. The farther it is, the quieter. Quiet invites contemplation. The desire to see farther was a desire to extend quiet, to keep the world at a volume that could be tolerated. Approaching increases intensity. Distance softens it. Being able to see clearly from afar would allow intensity to remain low while understanding increased. This balance was appealing. It promised awareness without disturbance, safety without ignorance, knowledge without exposure. The wish remained abstract for a long time. It did not demand form. It existed as a tension between the feet and the eyes. The feet stayed still. The eyes strained gently. This strain was not painful. It was attentive. It was the eye leaning forward while the body remained behind. This lean is important. It shows intent without movement. The desire to see farther did not want to erase distance. It wanted to inhabit it, to make distance useful, not to collapse space, but to read it. This is a different impulse from conquest. Conquest moves forward. This desire stays. It watches. It listens. It waits. Waiting becomes a skill. In waiting, the mind learns patience. In patience, observation deepens. You notice subtle changes. A figure shifts direction. Light changes tone. Movement slows or accelerates. These changes carry meaning. You do not need to be close to sense them. The desire to see farther was born here, in the ability to sense without touching, to understand without entering, to remain separate without disconnecting. This separation was not cold. It was careful. Careful observation values distance. It respects boundaries. It does not rush to close gaps. The fear of approaching is sometimes fear of losing clarity. Up close, details overwhelm. They fragment attention. From far away, things remain whole. The whole is easier to hold. The mind prefers this sometimes, especially at rest, especially in quiet moments. Looking from a distance allows the mind to remain unfragmented. It keeps thought broad. This breadth feels safe. So the desire to see farther did not come from hunger for detail. It came from a wish to maintain wholeness, to see more without breaking the calm, to stay outside the scene while understanding it better. This is why observation felt like safety. It allowed engagement without vulnerability. You could witness without being witnessed. You could look without being looked at. This asymmetry felt protective, not aggressive. Protective. The world does not always need response. Sometimes it only needs acknowledgement. Seeing from afar is a form of acknowledgement that does not interfere. The desire to see farther honored this. It did not ask to change the world. It asked to understand it while remaining unchanged. This desire remained unresolved for a long time. It existed as quiet tension, as stillness with intent, as eyes reaching beyond the body's limits. It waited, not impatiently, patiently. And in that waiting, it shaped how humans stood, looked, and stayed. Before any device existed, the desire itself was already complete. A wish not to move, a wish not to rush, a wish to see without stepping forward, a wish to remain whole while looking outward, a wish born from distance, sustained by quiet, and held gently in the space between fear and curiosity. This was the desire to see farther, and it did not need a name. It only needed time. The first attempts to enhance vision were not confident. They did not arrive with certainty or celebration. They appeared quietly, almost accidentally, as small experiments with glass and light, simple shapes, curved surfaces, transparent material held up to the eye. At first, there was curiosity, not excitement, a careful curiosity that asked a single question. What happens if light bends? The answer was not clarity. It was distortion. Early lenses did not reveal the world. They unsettled it. Looking through glass felt strange. The world shifted in unexpected ways. Lines curved, distances compressed unevenly. Objects grew larger, but not truer. They swelled, blurred, lost their edges. The eye hesitated. It was not used to this kind of seeing. Vision had always been direct. Light traveled from the world to the eye without interruption. Now something stood in between. Glass, transparent but not invisible. The presence of the lens was felt immediately. You did not forget it was there. Looking through early lenses required effort. You had to align the eye carefully, move the glass slightly, adjust angle and distance. A small shift could turn the image from enlarged to unreadable. Seeing became unstable. This instability created caution. The world through glass did not behave like the world without it. It moved when you moved the lens. It responded to the slightest adjustment. It felt sensitive, almost fragile. The eye was no longer the sole participant. Vision became shared between eye and object. This sharing felt unfamiliar. The mind struggled to trust what it saw. Was this shape real, or an artifact of the glass? Was this movement happening or being created by the lens? Doubt entered perception. Before lenses, distance softened detail, but it did not distort it. Far objects were vague, but honest. They were unclear because they were far, not because something interfered. Through early optical experiments, closeness arrived with uncertainty. The world came nearer, but it did not settle. This unsettled quality mattered. It slowed acceptance. People did not rush to rely on lenses. They tested them. They questioned them. They noticed how easily the image changed. A lens could make something appear closer without making it more understandable. Enlargement did not equal insight. A distant shape, when magnified, might show more surface, but less meaning. You saw texture, but lost context. You saw parts, but not relationships. The eye, accustomed to taking in whole scenes, found this narrowing uncomfortable. The lens asked the gaze to focus intensely on a small area. Everything else fell away. Peripheral vision vanished. The world shrank to a circle of glass. This narrowing felt unnatural. It asked the eye to abandon its usual rhythm. Without lenses, vision was broad. With lenses, it became constrained. This constraint created tension. The body reacted subtly. Breathing changed. Posture stiffened. Looking through glass required holding still, maintaining alignment. It demanded attention in a way ordinary sight did not. seeing became work. The strangeness of glass vision also came from light itself. Reflections appeared where none existed before. Glare interrupted the image. The lens caught light and returned it to the eye, confusing depth and surface. You sometimes saw the glass more than the world. Smudges, scratches, imperfections. These marks reminded you that you were not seeing directly. There was always a barrier. This barrier introduced skepticism. Could the world be trusted when seen through something else? Early optical experiments did not resolve this question. They deepened it. The magnified world felt closer, but also more abstract. Details appeared without explanation. Forms lost their familiar proportions. Things did not look as memory expected them to. The mind compared what it saw through glass with what it knew from experience. The mismatch created discomfort. It was not fear, it was caution. People approached these early lenses slowly. They used them briefly, then set them down. They returned to naked sight to reorient themselves. The eye needed reassurance. Glass vision was not continuous. It came in short moments, a glance, an experiment, a withdrawal. This rhythm prevented full immersion. Technology remained tentative. The lenses themselves felt delicate. Glass could break. It chipped. It scratched easily. Holding it required care. Using it required patience. These qualities shaped attitude. A fragile tool invites careful use. There was no sense that lenses could dominate vision. They were aids at best, experiments at worst. They did not inspire confidence. The world through early lenses felt altered, not enhanced, closer but less stable, larger but less reliable. This contradiction slowed adoption. The eye did not want more information if that information felt untrustworthy. Understanding mattered more than proximity. The desire to see farther was never about magnification alone. It was about meaningful distance. Early lenses offered scale, but not meaning. They showed more surface, but did not explain it. This limitation was obvious. Looking through glass did not answer questions. It created new ones. What am I actually seeing? Is this shape accurate? Does this movement belong to the world or to the lens? Such questions interrupted the calm of observation. The lens demanded interpretation. Without it, seeing was simpler. The naked eye accepted uncertainty at distance, but it trusted what it saw up close. With lenses, uncertainty moved closer. It entered the center of vision. This reversal felt unsettling. Technology in this early stage did not promise mastery. It suggested compromise. You could see more, but you had to accept distortion. You could approach without moving, but you lost stability. The trade-off was not obviously worth it, so people hesitated. They treated lenses as curiosities rather than extensions of the body. You picked them up, looked briefly, then returned to ordinary sight. This back and forth preserved balance. It prevented dependence. The eye remained primary. Glass remained secondary. The experience of looking through early lenses often left a faint afterimage. When you removed the glass, the world looked different for a moment. Not clearer, stranger. The mind needed time to readjust. This reinforced the idea that glass vision was temporary. It did not integrate smoothly. It interrupted. This interruption limited trust. Trust requires continuity. Early optical experiments lacked it. They were episodic, discontinuous, fragile. Even the act of holding a lens felt different from holding nothing. The hand became part of seeing. The body inserted itself into the visual process. Seeing was no longer effortless, it became mediated. This mediation was not yet welcome. People valued the simplicity of direct sight. The world seen without tools was predictable. It followed known rules. Distance softened things gradually. Light behaved consistently. Through glass, rules bent. Sometimes, literally. Lines curved. Edges warped. Perspective shifted unexpectedly. The mind had to learn new patterns. Learning takes time. In the absence of urgency, people preferred to wait. They accepted limits. The early optical world was not trusted because it did not feel stable. It did not match the lived experience of space and movement. It was impressive in moments, but tiring over time. The eye longed to relax. Through glass, relaxation was difficult. You had to hold position. You had to adjust constantly. You had to question what you saw. This vigilance prevented rest. The technology remained separate. It did not merge with the senses. It hovered at the edge of usefulness. There was also a quiet fear in magnification. Not fear of danger, but fear of deception. If glass could make things look closer, what else could it alter? If it could bend light, could it bend truth? This fear did not need words. It existed as hesitation, as limited use, as preference for naked sight. Early optical experiments taught an important lesson. Seeing more is not the same as seeing better. Closeness does not guarantee understanding. The world enlarged through glass did not necessarily feel more real. Sometimes it felt less so. Because reality is not only about detail, it is about coherence. Early lenses disrupted coherence. They isolated fragments. They broke continuity. This breaking made the mind cautious. Technology was not yet trusted to mediate perception. It had not earned that role. So lenses remained tools of curiosity, not dependence. They were used in moments of interest, then set aside. They did not reshape daily seeing. They did not alter the rhythm of observation. The eye still governed. The body still moved to learn more. Glass offered glimpses, not integration. These early experiments revealed a fundamental truth. Vision is not only optical, it is bodily. It relies on balance, posture, movement, memory. Glass intervened in this system without fully supporting it. This incompleteness kept technology fragile. People sensed that something was missing. The lens alone was not enough. It could magnify, but not contextualize. It could enlarge, but not explain. It could bring closer, but not make sense. This realization tempered enthusiasm. The world was not ready to be seen entirely through glass, and glass was not ready to carry the weight of vision. So early optical experiments remained careful, tentative, quiet. They did not announce a new era. They whispered a possibility approached with caution. The eye remained loyal to itself. Distance remained meaningful. Trust remained with the body. The world stayed where it was, closer through glass, but not yet clearer. And that lack of clarity preserved restraint. Seeing more did not yet mean seeing better. So people waited. They waited for glass to become less fragile, for images to stabilize, for vision through tools to feel natural. Until then, the eye accepted its limits, and in those limits, it found balance. The early experiments passed quietly, leaving behind not certainty, but awareness. Awareness that vision could be altered, but also awareness that alteration comes with cost. And so, the desire to see farther paused again. Not abandoned, just waiting, as it often does, in silence. For a long time, seeing farther meant flattening the world. Early lenses brought things closer. but they did so by compressing space. The image grew larger, yet it remained thin. Distance collapsed into surface. What was far appeared near, but it did not feel placed within space. Something was missing. Human vision was never meant to be singular. Two eyes do not simply duplicate sight, they compare it. Each eye receives a slightly different image. The difference is small, almost imperceptible, but the mind works constantly to reconcile it. From this reconciliation comes depth. Near and far separate themselves naturally. Space gains thickness. Distance becomes measurable without thought. This process happens quietly, continuously, without effort. When early optical experiments relied on a single lens, they interrupted this balance. The world was enlarged, but depth was reduced. One eye looked, the other waited. Space thinned. The mind noticed. Not analytically, physically. Something felt wrong. The image floated instead of resting. Objects appeared closer, but not placed. They lacked weight. They did not sit comfortably in the world. The introduction of two lenses changed this. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but decisively. Two lenses allowed both eyes to participate again. Each eye received its own enlarged image. The difference between them returned, and with it, depth. Distance regained volume. The world no longer pressed itself flat against the eye. It opened outward again. Space reappeared between things. Objects occupied positions instead of surfaces. This was a subtle shift, but it mattered. Looking through two lenses, the scene did not rush forward. It settled. It took its place at a distance that felt real, even if it was visually closer than before. The body responded immediately. Breathing eased. Posture relaxed. The effort of interpretation decreased. The mind no longer had to question whether what it saw belonged to the world or to the glass. The image behaved as expected. Near things appeared near. Far things appeared far, even when both were magnified. This consistency rebuilt trust. Distance, once again, made sense. The binocular view did not pull the observer forward. It did not suggest movement. It did not demand approach. The body stayed where it was. Only the gaze traveled. This separation was important. Before, to understand space, you had to move within it. Walk closer, shift position, change angle. The body was the instrument of depth. With two lenses, depth returned, without movement. The body could remain still. The world moved toward the eyes, but not toward the feet. This preserved safety. It preserved rest. Standing still, looking through both lenses, the observer felt grounded. The world did not intrude. It approached visually, but remained distant physically. This balance created calm. Distance became volumetric, not just far or near, but layered. Foreground, middle ground, background. These layers appeared naturally, without effort. The mind recognized them immediately. It had always known how to read them. Two eyes restored this language. The scene gained structure. A tree stood in front of a hill. A figure moved across a field. Clouds hovered behind everything else. Nothing overlapped unnaturally. Nothing pressed itself flat. The space between things mattered again. This spacing slowed perception. The eye no longer rushed to identify detail. It lingered within depth. It moved gently from one layer to another. Looking became a journey without steps. The body remained anchored. This anchoring mattered more than clarity alone. Clarity without depth feels invasive. Depth without movement feels safe. The binocular view allowed observation to remain observational. You did not feel pulled into the scene. You did not feel surrounded. You remained outside, looking in. This external position preserved control. Not control over the scene, but control over yourself. You could stop at any time, lower the lenses, return to naked sight. The body never crossed into the observed space. Distance stayed intact. Two lenses did not erase distance. They clarified it. They made distance readable rather than mysterious. This readability reduced tension. Before, distant things carried uncertainty. Shapes blurred. Movements were ambiguous. The mind filled gaps with imagination. With depth restored, ambiguity softened. Not because everything became clear, but because space behaved predictably. The mind trusts predictability. Predictable space calms the nervous system. When depth aligns with expectation, the body relaxes. This relaxation changed how long people could observe. With one lens, the strain accumulated quickly. With two, the gaze could rest longer. Observation became sustainable. The eyes worked together instead of competing. This cooperation reduced fatigue. The binocular view felt closer to natural sight, even as it extended it. This closeness to nature mattered. Technology that aligns with the body integrates more easily. Two lenses aligned with the body's way of seeing. They did not ask the eye to change its habits. They supported them. Looking through binocular lenses, the observer did not feel transformed. They felt assisted. The world did not feel artificial. It felt extended. This extension preserved humility. You were still where you stood. You had not crossed space. You had not entered the scene. You had only clarified it. This distinction is important. The binocular view did not promise access. It promised perspective. Perspective does not demand action. It allows understanding while maintaining distance. The observer remained a witness. The world remained itself. Depth reinforced this separation. Objects had volume, but they did not invite touch. They occupied space without collapsing into it. The sense of scale returned. A mountain looked large because it was large, not because it was magnified. A person looked small because they were far, not because they were reduced. This consistency restored proportion. Proportion grounds perception. Without it, the mind feels disoriented. With it, observation becomes steady. Standing still, looking through two lenses, the observer experienced a quiet expansion, not of reach, of awareness. Awareness widened without requiring movement. The world opened gently, not rushing, not flattening. The depth also reintroduced time into vision. Movement across space could be tracked more easily. A figure walking across a field moved through layers. You could see where they were and where they were going. This temporal clarity did not speed things up. It slowed them. You watched progression instead of anticipating arrival. The scene unfolded gradually. The mind followed without urgency. This made waiting easier. You did not feel compelled to act. You did not feel behind. You were exactly where you needed to be. Depth encourages patience. Flat images invite quick interpretation. Depth invites lingering. The binocular view encouraged lingering. The observer could stay. Nothing pushed them away. Nothing pulled them in. The body remained still. The gaze remained engaged. This balance created a state of quiet alertness, not boredom, not excitement, presence. The two lenses worked together to maintain this state. Each eye confirmed the other. The image stabilized. Trust grew. With trust, observation softened. You stopped questioning what you saw. You accepted it. Acceptance reduced mental noise. The scene existed. You existed. Nothing more was required. The distance between observer and world remained measurable. It did not collapse. It did not disappear. It became legible. Legibility matters. It transforms uncertainty into calm awareness. The binocular view offered legible distance, not closeness. Distance, understood. This understanding allowed the observer to remain where they were, without tension. The feet did not move. The body did not lean forward. There was no impulse to approach. Approach was no longer necessary. Understanding had arrived without it. This was the quiet achievement of two lenses. Not conquest, not domination, accommodation. They accommodated the body's way of seeing. They accommodated distance. They accommodated stillness. The world did not rush closer. It settled into depth. The observer did not advance. They remained, and in remaining, they saw more clearly than before, not because the world had changed, but because space had been restored. Two lenses, one distance, distance that remained distance, depth that made distance meaningful, vision that traveled without the body, observation that did not disturb. The world extended but intact, the observer still and present. This was binocular sight, not an escape from distance, but a way to inhabit it more fully, without moving at all. Binoculars were never meant for movement. They did not belong to walking, rushing, or crossing space. From the beginning, they asked the body to stop, to plant its feet, to settle its weight, to become still enough for the world to approach on its own. When binoculars are raised, the first thing that happens is not seeing, it is stopping. The body pauses, breath adjusts, muscles quiet. Only then does the image arrive. The person remains where they are. The ground does not shift beneath their feet. Nothing physical changes in their position. And yet, the world moves closer, not violently, not suddenly, gently. The distance compresses without collapsing. Hills advance without being climbed. Figures grow larger without being approached. Details appear without footsteps. This is a strange reversal. Usually, movement belongs to the body. To see more, you walk. To understand, you approach. With binoculars, this logic inverts. The body stays. The world advances visually. This inversion creates calm. When the body does not move, it remains safe. It does not expose itself. It does not commit. It holds its ground. The binoculars respect this. They do not urge the observer forward. They do not suggest action. They do not reward speed. They reward stillness. Observation through binoculars is quiet by nature. It is not active in the way participation is. It does not alter what is observed. It leaves the scene untouched. You look. The world remains as it was. This absence of influence matters. The observer does not interfere. They do not shape outcomes. They do not enter the scene. They remain outside it. Observation becomes a form of restraint. Standing still, the observer watches events unfold without adding to them. The binoculars do not extend the body's reach. They extend the gaze only. The body stays neutral. This neutrality creates a pause, not an empty pause, a deliberate one. Between raising the binoculars and lowering them, time stretches. The world does not demand reaction. It simply exists, enlarged but unchanged. This pause replaces action. Instead of doing something, you watch something. Instead of intervening, you remain. This shift is subtle but profound. In many situations, the instinct is to move closer, to step in, to respond. Binoculars interrupt that instinct. They offer an alternative. Stay, look, wait. Waiting becomes central. Not waiting for something specific. Waiting without expectation. Between one glance and the next, there is silence. The binoculars lower. The eyes return to ordinary sight. The world shrinks back to its original scale. Nothing has changed. This return to distance reinforces the pause. You are reminded that nothing requires immediate response. The binoculars do not hold the world permanently close. They allow it to approach briefly, then release it again. This rhythm, raise, observe, lower, creates natural breaks. Silence fills these breaks. The silence between looks is as important as the look itself. In that silence, the body rests, the eyes relax, the mind clears. Observation does not accumulate. It does not stack endlessly. Each look is complete on its own. The binoculars do not invite continuous engagement. They invite intervals. These intervals slow time. When you know that looking requires effort, lifting the object, aligning it, holding still, you do not look constantly. You choose moments. You observe when there is reason, and when there is none, you do nothing. This doing nothing is not boredom. It is presence without demand. The binoculars sit quietly when not in use. They do not vibrate. They do not glow. They do not call for attention. They wait. Waiting is their natural state. In this, they resemble the landscape they are used to observe. Mountains do not hurry. Fields do not rush. The sea does not react to being watched. The binoculars mirror this stillness. They are not impatient tools. They do not shorten time. They do not speed understanding. They slow both. Standing still with binoculars, the observer becomes part of the background. They blend into the environment rather than acting upon it. This blending increases safety. When you are not moving, you are less visible. When you are quiet, you disturb less. The binoculars support this invisibility. They allow seeing without revealing. This asymmetry, seeing without being seen, reinforces restraint. You have information, but you do not use it to act. You simply hold it. Holding without acting requires calm. The binoculars cultivate that calm by design. They are not easily used while moving. Walking blurs the image. Breathing too deeply shakes it. Small movements disrupt clarity. The object demands stillness. If you want to see, you must stop. This demand reshapes behavior. You do not pace. You do not rush. You stand. You settle. The world, in response, comes to you visually. This relationship feels balanced. Neither side advances. Neither side retreats. The distance remains. The binoculars make distance readable, not removable. This distinction is essential. Tools meant for action encourage movement. They push the body forward. Tools meant for observation encourage pause. The binoculars belong to the second kind. They do not ask the observer to participate. They ask them to notice. Noticing is slower than doing. It allows details to emerge naturally. A figure pauses. Light changes slightly. Wind shifts direction. These changes are subtle. They reveal themselves only when nothing else is happening. If you are moving, you miss them. Standing still, you receive them. The binoculars support this reception. They amplify without urgency. They do not compress events into importance. They show what is already there. This honesty makes them gentle. They do not dramatize. They do not exaggerate. They simply bring forward what exists. Observation through binoculars does not feel like control. It feels like allowance. You allow the scene to unfold at its own pace. You do not direct it. This allowance creates a particular kind of peace. You are involved enough to be aware, detached enough to remain calm. The binoculars hold this balance. When the observer lowers them, the world returns to its ordinary distance. Nothing feels lost. Nothing feels unfinished. The look was complete. This completeness reduces restlessness. There is no need to keep checking, no urge to stay engaged. You can stop. The binoculars rest again. The pause resumes. This cycle, stillness, observation, stillness, defines the binoculars as a stationary tool. They belong to places where time moves slowly. Hilltops, shorelines, edges of fields, places where standing is natural. They do not fit well in hurried environments. They resist speed. They ask for patience. The observer who accepts this finds that time changes texture. Minutes stretch. Moments deepen. Nothing presses. The binoculars do not create narrative. They do not push toward outcome. They reveal presence. Presence without demand. Standing still, holding binoculars, the observer occupies a quiet position in the world. Not central, not absent. Simply there. This position is rare. Modern life often rewards motion. It equates movement with progress. The binoculars challenge this idea. They suggest that staying can be as meaningful as going, that seeing does not require participation, that understanding does not require intervention. This suggestion is gentle. It does not argue. It demonstrates. The observer feels it in the body, the feet rooted, the weight balanced, the hands steady. The world comes closer, then retreats. Nothing else happens, and nothing needs to. The binoculars remain in the hands, then at the side, then on the ground, inactive. They do not hum with potential. They do not store urgency. They are content to wait. This contentment transfers to the observer. Standing still becomes comfortable. Waiting becomes natural. Silence becomes acceptable. The binoculars do not fill silence. They coexist with it. Between looks, there is nothing to do. This nothing is not empty. It is full of space. Space for thought to slow. Space for breath to deepen. Space for the world to remain unchanged. The binoculars, as a stationary tool, protect this space. They do not rush it. They do not break it. They honor it. When the observer eventually moves, it is not because the binoculars demanded it. It is because the moment passed naturally. The scene ended. The need to look faded. Movement resumes without pressure. This lack of pressure is their quiet strength. They do not dictate. They do not lead. They wait. And in waiting, they teach stillness. The person stands. The world approaches visually. Observation replaces action. Pause replaces urgency. Silence stretches between glances. And the binoculars remain what they were meant to be. A tool for staying, not for going. A way to see more while doing less. A companion to stillness. A reminder that sometimes the most complete response is to stand, look, and let the world remain exactly as it is. The binoculars do not change what you feel. They do not sharpen joy. They do not deepen fear. They do not add meaning. They only adjust distance. When you lift the binoculars, the world does not become louder. It does not become more urgent. It does not become personal. It becomes clearer. Clarity is not emotion. Clarity is shape, edge, proportion. The binoculars do not care what you are looking at. They do not respond to importance. They do not recognize significance. They magnify equally. A mountain receives the same attention as a wall. A moving figure receives the same treatment as a still one. Nothing is prioritized. This neutrality defines the object. The binoculars do not guide the eye. They do not suggest where to look longer. They do not hold attention for you. They simply present. Two lenses, aligned, steady. You look through them, and the world arrives closer, but unchanged in tone. Distance collapses spatially, not emotionally. This is the difference. When something comes physically closer, emotion often follows. The body reacts, breath adjusts, muscles tense or soften, but binoculars bypass the body. The body remains where it is, standing, still, uninvolved. Only the eyes move forward. The rest of you stays behind. This separation matters. It keeps experience contained. The binoculars create a visual bridge without creating presence. You see more detail, but you do not enter the scene. Nothing smells different. Nothing sounds louder. The air does not change. Only form increases. Edges sharpen. Textures appear. Lines resolve. Emotion does not. The binoculars do not bring warmth. They do not bring cold either. They are indifferent. Indifference is not absence. It is consistency. Everything is treated the same. This is why the binoculars do not dramatize. Drama requires interpretation. Drama requires framing. Drama requires emphasis. The binoculars provide none of this. They do not tell you what matters. They do not slow the view for significance. They do not linger. They wait. You decide when to look. You decide when to stop. The object does not influence this decision. Looking through binoculars often feels quieter than expected. The act is physical, but minimal. Hands lift, arms settle. The body locks into stillness. Movement reduces. Speech stops. The binoculars encourage pause, not reaction. They reward steadiness. If you move too much, the image shakes. If you breathe too sharply, the view blurs. The object teaches restraint without instruction. To see clearly, you must become still. This stillness dampens emotion. Emotion thrives on movement. Stillness flattens it. Through the binoculars, events lose urgency. A wave breaks in the distance. Seen through glass, it is shape and repetition. Not power, not sound, not force. A bird moves across the sky. Its motion is precise. Its wings are visible, but it remains silent. You do not hear it. You do not feel its proximity. You only see structure. This separation removes narrative. There is no story unfolding, only form in motion. The binoculars do not supply context. They do not explain. They do not connect what you see to what you know. They show, and then they wait. Seeing without understanding is common here. The binoculars make this obvious. Details appear that do not resolve into meaning. You can see a face in the distance. Lines, contours, movement, but not intention, not emotion, not thought. The more you magnify, the more this becomes clear. Closeness of vision does not equal closeness of knowledge. Understanding requires more than clarity. The binoculars offer none of that. They stop at form. This creates a cold relationship, not hostile, just distant. The world is visible, but unreachable. This unreachable quality remains constant. Even as details sharpen, separation stays intact. The binoculars do not invite empathy. They do not create connection. They do not close the gap between observer and observed. They simply reduce blur. Blur is not emotion. Blur is uncertainty. Removing uncertainty does not automatically create meaning. Sometimes it removes it. The world seen clearly can feel more abstract, more distant, more like a surface. The binoculars flatten experience into geometry. Lines, angles, movement. Everything becomes arrangement. This arrangement does not ask for reaction. You can watch for a long time without feeling involved. Time passes. The image changes. Your internal state remains mostly unchanged. This is the calm of observation without participation. The binoculars allow watching without consequence. You do not influence what you see. What you see does not influence you deeply. There is symmetry in this. Neither side reaches the other. This symmetry keeps emotion stable. The object does not heighten tension. It does not soften it either. It holds everything at the same level. This is why binoculars are often associated with patience, not excitement, not urgency. Patience is emotional neutrality stretched over time. You wait, you observe. Nothing happens that requires response. The binoculars support this state. They do not interrupt. They do not surprise. They are predictable. Predictability reduces emotional spikes. Every adjustment is manual, every movement deliberate. Nothing appears suddenly. Nothing demands immediate attention. Even motion feels slow. The world moves at its own pace, untouched by your viewing. This reinforces detachment. You are not part of what you see. You are outside it. The binoculars maintain this boundary. They do not collapse it. They reinforce it visually. The more clearly you see, the more clearly you understand your distance. This is not disappointment. It is fact. The object does not deceive. It does not promise closeness. It does not suggest intimacy. It offers vision only, vision without access. This makes the binoculars honest. They do not pretend to connect. They do not simulate presence. They do not create illusion of participation. They show, and that is all. Because of this, emotion remains unamplified. What you feel comes from you, not from the object. The binoculars add nothing. They subtract confusion. And in doing so, they leave feeling untouched. This neutrality can feel cold, but it is not aggressive. It is simply unresponsive. The object does not react to human emotion, does not adjust based on mood. It remains the same, always. This sameness stabilizes experience. You know what will happen when you look. You will see more detail, nothing else. This reliability is calming. There is no anticipation, no suspense, no payoff. The binoculars do not build toward anything. They remain in the present. Seeing happens now. Understanding may happen later, or not at all. The object does not care. You can watch something dramatic from afar. A storm, a crowd, a moving line of activity. Through binoculars, drama becomes pattern. Movement becomes rhythm. Emotion dissolves into repetition. The distance protects the observer, not physically, psychologically. The binoculars create a safe removal. You are not implicated. You are not addressed. You are not involved. This allows observation without burden. The object does not judge. It does not frame events as good or bad. It does not assign value. Everything exists as shape in space. This makes the world feel neutral, not empty, not rich, just present. Seeing without understanding can be unsettling, but the binoculars normalize it. They show how often vision outpaces meaning, how frequently clarity arrives without context. This does not create anxiety. It creates acceptance. Not everything seen must be understood. Not everything observed must be processed emotionally. The binoculars embody this idea. They demonstrate restraint. They stop short of interpretation. They refuse to complete the experience. This refusal keeps them quiet. They do not tell stories. They do not conclude. They do not resolve. They leave things as they are. The world remains inaccessible beyond vision. You cannot step through the lenses. You cannot cross the distance, they collapse. You remain where you are. This immobility is key. The body does not engage. The heart rate stays steady. Breathing remains even. Emotion stays level. The binoculars reinforce stillness, and stillness suppresses drama. This is their nature. They were never designed to excite. They were designed to clarify. Clarity without meaning is neutral, and neutrality is quiet. When you lower the binoculars, nothing changes internally. The image disappears. The distance returns. The world resumes its scale. Emotion remains where it was, unaltered. This lack of after effect distinguishes binoculars from other tools. They do not linger. They do not imprint. They leave no residue. You look, you stop. Nothing follows. The binoculars do not carry memory. They do not store what was seen. They do not replay. They do not remind. They allow seeing without accumulation. This keeps experience light. Nothing builds. Nothing escalates. Everything remains at the same emotional temperature. The world stays distant, accessible only visually. This distance is not loneliness. It is separation. There is a difference. Loneliness implies desire for connection. Distance does not. Distance simply exists. The binoculars respect this. They do not attempt to bridge emotional space. They accept separation as natural. The observer remains outside. The observed remains unaware. This asymmetry does not create tension. It creates calm. No interaction means no responsibility. No response required. You can observe indefinitely, or not at all. The object does not mind. This indifference is what keeps emotion flat. The binoculars do not react to urgency. They do not respond to tragedy. They do not amplify importance. They treat everything equally. This equality removes drama. Without hierarchy, nothing stands out emotionally. Everything becomes surface. Surface without depth. Surface without demand. This chapter remains here, at distance, without conclusion, without emphasis. The binoculars continue to exist as they always have. A tool that shows more without feeling more. A device that clarifies without involving. A way to see without understanding. And a way to observe the world without entering it. Distance remains. Drama does not arrive. And the object remains unchanged. Cold, neutral, silent. Binoculars in everyday life are quiet. They do not announce themselves. They do not transform the day. They do not arrive with importance. They appear when walking slows, on a path that does not lead anywhere urgent, along a shoreline where nothing needs to be done, at the edge of a field that will look the same tomorrow. In these places, binoculars do not feel like tools. They feel like background, something carried without intention, something that may or may not be used, something that rests more than it works. On a walk, binoculars often stay lowered. They move with the body gently, unnoticed. Their weight is present but familiar. They do not pull attention forward. Walking remains walking. Footsteps keep their rhythm. Breathing stays even. The landscape unfolds at the pace of movement. Nothing calls out to be examined. Then sometimes something does. Not suddenly. A shift of light. A shape that stands apart. A motion that does not repeat. The binoculars rise, only briefly. The body stops, but without ceremony. One foot settles. The other follows. The scene grows closer, but only for a moment. A cluster of trees becomes individual branches. A distant line becomes a shoreline. A small movement becomes a bird resting, not flying. Nothing dramatic happens. The binoculars lower again. Walking resumes. The look does not interrupt the day. It fits into it. This is how binoculars live in ordinary time. They do not demand attention. They accept it when offered. In landscapes, binoculars do not search for events. They reveal stillness. Hills remain hills. Water remains water. Clouds remain clouds. Looking closer does not change their nature. It only confirms it. The sea, seen through binoculars, does not become more active. Waves still arrive and leave. The surface still moves without pattern. At a distance, the sea is a single surface. Up close, through lenses, it becomes layers. But these layers do not tell a story. They repeat. The repetition is calming. Watching the sea through binoculars does not invite thought. It invites duration. You can stay with it for a while. Then you stop. Nothing is unfinished. Birds often appear this way, not as subjects, as presences. A bird perched far away does not perform. It waits. Through binoculars, you see detail without meaning, feathers arranged, a head turning slowly, stillness punctuated by small adjustments. The bird does not look back. It does not acknowledge observation. This lack of response is important. It keeps the moment neutral. The binoculars do not turn observation into interaction. They maintain separation. You watch. The bird remains. Nothing passes between you. In everyday life, binoculars are used in this manner. Without expectation, without narrative. There is no beginning, no end. You look when something is there to be looked at. You stop when there is not. Between these moments, nothing happens. This nothing is not absence. It is continuity. The binoculars do not interrupt continuity. They sit inside it. Often, they remain untouched, carried but unused. They do not insist. They do not signal missed opportunities. They do not remind you of what you could be seeing. They are patient. On long walks, binoculars may be lifted only once or not at all. This is not failure. It is their nature. They are not meant to be used constantly. They are meant to be available. Availability without pressure. This is what makes them fit everyday life. In daily landscapes, nothing asks to be examined closely. The world is sufficient at its own scale. Binoculars do not compete with this sufficiency. They complement it quietly. Looking at a distant hillside through binoculars does not reveal secrets. It confirms distance. You see trees as trees, not as mysteries. The look reassures rather than excites. In this way, binoculars reduce curiosity instead of amplifying it. They satisfy it quickly. You see enough, then you stop. This stopping matters. It prevents accumulation. Observation does not pile up. It dissolves back into walking, breathing, being present. The binoculars do not hold attention. They release it. This release keeps the day light. Nothing becomes heavy. Nothing demands remembering. The binoculars are not used to collect. They are used to glance. A glance held slightly longer. In parks, people raise binoculars without thinking, not to search, to confirm. A distant shape becomes what it seemed to be. A statue remains a statue. A tree remains a tree. The confirmation ends. Curiosity. Curiosity rests. The binoculars lower. The park remains. Children pass. Wind moves leaves. Nothing changes. This ordinariness defines binoculars in daily life. They do not alter the scene. They do not elevate it. They simply allow a closer look without consequence. This lack of consequence makes them safe. There is no obligation attached to seeing. You are not required to act on what you observe. You are not required to understand it deeply. You are not required to remember it. The binoculars do not ask for follow-up. They are complete in the moment of use. In everyday life, moments are small. Binoculars respect this. They do not inflate moments into significance. They keep them small. A bird on a branch, a boat far out on the water, a line of trees moving slightly in the wind. These are not events. They are states. The binoculars reveal states. States do not resolve. They persist. Looking at them does not change them. This persistence encourages calm. You realize that nothing needs attention. The world is doing what it does. Your observation does not matter to it. This realization is comforting. It removes responsibility. You are free to look and free to stop. The binoculars do not demand engagement. They allow it. In this way, they become part of the background of life, like a bench on a path, like a fence along a field. They exist. They are there. They do not insist on use. In many cases, binoculars hang around the neck and are forgotten. They sway slightly as the body moves. They tap softly against clothing. This gentle movement reminds you they are there, but not that they must be used. They become part of the walk, not the focus of it. This integration is important. Tools that integrate quietly do not disrupt rhythm. They support it. The binoculars support the rhythm of walking by staying out of the way. They do not alter pace. They do not cause stopping unless something naturally invites it. The invitation is external, never internal. You do not feel compelled to search. You respond only to what appears. This responsiveness is relaxed. It does not scan constantly. It waits. Waiting becomes comfortable. In everyday life, waiting is common. Waiting at the edge of a path. Waiting for light to change. Waiting for nothing in particular. The binoculars do not make waiting productive. They make it tolerable. You can look if you want. You cannot look. Either is fine. This lack of urgency defines their place. At the sea, binoculars often stay unused. The horizon is already wide, the water already moving. Looking closer does not add meaning. Sometimes you look anyway. A distant ship becomes clearer. Then it remains a ship. No story emerges. You lower the binoculars. The sea continues. This repetition reinforces the idea that nothing needs to be extracted from the world. The binoculars do not extract. They observe. In everyday life, observation is enough. You do not need conclusions. You do not need outcomes. You do not need memories. The binoculars allow observation without accumulation. They do not store. They do not record. They do not remind. They forget immediately. This forgetting is gentle. It keeps the mind clear. Nothing piles up. Nothing demands recall. Each look stands alone. When binoculars are used this way, they become neutral. They are neither exciting nor dull. They simply are. This neutrality allows them to exist in many lives without defining them. They belong to moments that are not special. They fit into afternoons without purpose, into evenings that do not lead anywhere, into walks that end where they began. The binoculars do not push toward destination. They belong to presence, presence without narrative, looking without story, seeing without interpretation. This is why binoculars feel appropriate in everyday life. They do not dramatize. They do not elevate. They do not disturb. They align with the natural scale of things. In daily use, binoculars often reveal how little changes. A scene observed earlier looks the same later. The bird is still there. The hill is unchanged. The water moves the same way. This constancy reassures. The world is stable. Observation confirms stability. The binoculars do not create illusion of movement or progress. They reveal persistence. Persistence calms. The observer becomes comfortable with not expecting change. Expectation fades. Attention softens. The binoculars become part of the environment, not an instrument to master, not a lens to interpret, just a way to look a little closer when standing still. This standing still is central. Even in everyday life, Binoculars do not accompany action. They accompany pause. You stop walking, you look, you continue. They mark moments of stillness, small ones, unimportant ones. This unimportance is their strength. They do not compete with life. They exist alongside it. In this way, binoculars do not demand a story. They dissolve into routine. They become background, carried, occasionally raised, often forgotten. They are present without presence. And because of this, they fit easily into everyday life. They do not change the day. They do not enrich it dramatically. They do not reduce it either. They pass through it quietly, like light through leaves, like wind across grass, not noticed, not remembered, just there. And that is enough. There is a particular calm in watching without being seen. It is not excitement. It is not power. It is not secrecy in the dramatic sense. It is simply asymmetry. One side looks, the other does not know. This imbalance is gentle. It does not announce itself. It does not demand anything. It exists quietly, like darkness behind a window. When binoculars are raised, the observer becomes smaller in the world, not physically, but perceptually. The body retreats into stillness. Movement reduces, breath slows. The act of watching does not send signals outward. The observer does not enter the scene. They remain outside it. The object of observation continues unchanged. A distant figure walks. A light remains lit. A bird stays perched. Nothing reacts. This lack of reaction is essential. It keeps the moment clean. When someone knows they are being watched, behavior shifts, posture changes, awareness tightens. The scene becomes performative, even unintentionally. Watching without being seen removes performance. What remains is unguarded continuity. The world does not turn toward the observer. It does not respond. It simply continues. This continuation creates trust. The observer trusts that what they see is not altered by their presence. The object trusts nothing because it does not know. This mutual ignorance, one conscious, one unaware, creates a peaceful imbalance. The observer holds awareness. The observed holds nothing. Distance protects this arrangement. Without distance, watching becomes interaction. Presence becomes intrusion. Proximity creates obligation. Distance dissolves obligation. From far away, you are not expected to act. You are not expected to speak. You are not expected to explain yourself. You exist quietly, without role. This is a relief. The binoculars support this relief by keeping the body still and separate. They do not ask you to approach. They do not invite entry. They allow you to remain anonymous. Anonymity is often misunderstood. It is not invisibility for the sake of avoidance. It is invisibility for the sake of rest. When you are not seen, you are not required. No one waits for your response. No one anticipates your reaction. No one asks anything of you. You are free to observe without consequence. This freedom is subtle. It does not exhilarate. It calms. Watching without being seen allows attention to soften. You do not need to manage how you appear. You do not need to consider how your presence shapes the moment. The moment unfolds without you, and yet you are there. This position, present but uninvolved, is rare. Modern life often collapses this distance. To see is to be seen. To observe is to participate. To know is to be known. Binoculars preserve an older separation. They allow awareness without exposure. This separation creates a gentle solitude, not loneliness. Solitude without absence. You are alone in your seeing, but not isolated from the world. You are connected through vision, but detached through distance. This balance feels safe. observer does not disappear. They remain fully themselves, but they do not intrude. They do not disturb. They do not leave a trace. This tracelessness reduces tension. When you know that nothing depends on you, your mind loosens its grip. Thoughts slow, judgments fade. You do not need to decide what something means. You do not need to react. You simply watch. Watching, in this form, is passive without being empty. It is attentive, but not demanding. The eyes focus. The body rests. The mind drifts gently, anchored by the scene. Night amplifies this feeling. In low light, the observer recedes further. The world becomes less aware of itself. Darkness absorbs edges. Sound travels softly. Watching at night carries an additional layer of anonymity. You are not only unseen, you feel unseeable. The darkness does not reveal you. It holds you. This holding is comforting. It removes urgency. It removes the need to explain why you are there. You are simply standing, looking, remaining. The binoculars, raised briefly, then lowered, do not break this anonymity. They are quiet objects. They do not glow. They do not announce use. They align with darkness. They belong to it. Through them, the observer watches small illuminated spaces within a larger dark field. A window, a light on a distant road, a reflection on water. These lights do not reach back. They exist independently. The observer becomes a silent witness, witnessing without testimony. Nothing is recorded. Nothing is reported. The scene exists, then passes. This passing is gentle. There is no accumulation of responsibility. You are not tasked with remembering. You are not tasked with understanding. You are allowed to let the moment go. This is why watching without being seen does not feel invasive. It does not extract. It does not capture. It does not take. It simply notices. Distance acts as a buffer. It prevents emotional overload. Up close, details demand response. Facial expressions, gestures, sounds, these pull you into interpretation. From far away, these details soften. What remains is movement, light, form, abstracted enough to be calm. This abstraction is protective. It keeps emotion from escalating. You may feel interest, but not attachment. Curiosity, but not obligation. This state allows observation to remain neutral. Neutrality is often mistaken for coldness. It is not. It is equilibrium. The observer remains balanced. The observed remains unchanged. Neither dominates. In this equilibrium, loneliness may appear, but without tragedy. You are alone in your position, but you are not cut off. The world is there. You see it. You are simply not part of it in that moment. This separation does not wound. It soothes. There is no rejection involved, no exclusion, just distance. Distance that is chosen. Chosen solitude feels different from imposed isolation. It carries agency. You are not pushed away. You are standing back. This distinction matters. Standing back allows reflection without pain. You are not missing out. You are resting. The anonymity of the observer also removes comparison. No one sees you. So there is no need to measure yourself against what you observe. You are not evaluated. You are not reflected. This absence of reflection quiets self-consciousness. You forget yourself briefly, not because you are overwhelmed, because you are unobserved. The mind relaxes when it is not being mirrored. Watching without being seen allows the self to dissolve slightly, not disappear, just soften. You become awareness without identity, a pair of eyes, a still body, a quiet presence. This state is deeply introverted, not withdrawn from the world, but turned inward while still facing outward. You are not engaging, you are receiving without response. This one-way flow is calming. It requires less energy than interaction. It does not drain, it restores. The binoculars support this one-way flow. They channel sight outward without inviting return. They do not transmit presence. They only receive image. This asymmetry is built into their use. You see, you are not seen. The world does not adjust for you. It does not adapt. It remains indifferent. Indifference, in this context, is gentle. It means freedom. You are not needed, and therefore you are free to remain. This freedom is often misunderstood as detachment. It is not detachment from feeling. It is detachment from obligation. You may feel warmth, curiosity, even affection for what you observe, but you are not required to act on it. The feeling remains internal, private, unshared. This privacy is valuable. It allows emotion to exist without consequence. You can feel without needing to express. The binoculars create a private corridor between observer and world. No one else enters it. It exists briefly, then closes. Night enhances this privacy. The darkness reduces awareness of the observer even further. You feel less defined. Edges blur. The world feels larger. You feel smaller within it. This reduction is not diminishing. It is relieving. Being small means not having to matter, not having to influence, not having to decide. The binoculars, raised and lowered, punctuate this state. Each look is temporary. Each connection is light. Nothing lingers. The observer does not remain attached. They can walk away easily. Nothing pulls them back. This ease of exit is important. It prevents fixation. It allows rest. Watching without being seen does not create narrative. There is no story arc, no climax, no resolution. There is only presence, then absence. The observer sees, then stops seeing. Both states are acceptable. Neither feels incomplete. This completeness prevents longing. You are not left wanting more. You saw enough, and now you rest. Distance makes this possible. Without distance, watching becomes involvement. Involvement creates residue. Residue creates thought loops. Distance keeps the experience clean. It leaves no trace. The observer remains unchanged. The observed remains unaware. The world continues. This continuation reassures. It reminds you that the world does not revolve around your attention. It exists independently. This independence is calming. You are not responsible for what you see. You are not required to intervene. You are allowed to let things be. The binoculars embody this permission. They do not suggest urgency. They do not escalate. They allow observation to remain observational. This quality makes them especially suited to night, to quiet places, to moments when the mind seeks rest rather than stimulation. Watching without being seen becomes a form of rest. Rest for the body, rest for the mind, rest for identity. You are no one in particular, just someone looking. The anonymity protects you from over-engagement. You do not insert yourself. You do not imagine your impact. You do not anticipate response. You are simply there. This simplicity is rare and deeply soothing. When the binoculars lower, the moment ends cleanly. No one notices. Nothing changes. The observer returns fully to themselves. The anonymity dissolves without friction. There is no loss, no regret. The solitude remains gentle. The night remains intact. The world remains distant. And in that distance, calm continues. Watching without being seen leaves no echo, no imprint. It is complete in itself. A quiet exchange with no record, no witness, no demand. Just a moment of awareness held in darkness, then released. This is the quiet gift of asymmetry, to see without being seen, to know without being known, to be present without entering, and to rest inside that space without tragedy. Only calm, only night, only distance, doing what distance has always done, protecting the observer and letting the world remain itself. The binoculars are lowered, not quickly, not decisively, just down. Hands move first, arms follow. The object leaves the face. Air returns to the space between eyes and world. For a moment, nothing happens. The image lingers. Then it dissolves. The world steps back. Distance reappears. Not suddenly, gradually. What was close becomes far again. What was detailed softens. Edges lose precision. The eyes adjust. They blink, once, then again. Muscles around them relax. The tension of alignment releases. Breathing deepens. The body remembers itself. The binoculars hang, or rest in the hands, inactive. The scene remains, but it has changed, not because it moved, because the way of seeing has. The world no longer presses forward. It retreats politely. It returns to its original scale. Hills flatten slightly. Figures shrink. Movement becomes suggestion again. The eyes accept this without complaint. They are familiar with distance. They have lived in it before. They know how to read it. Clarity gives way to impression. Detail gives way to shape. The mind adjusts its expectations. There is no loss. Nothing has been taken away. The close view was temporary. This was understood from the beginning. The binoculars never promised permanence. They offered a moment. Now the moment is over. Silence arrives. Not new silence. The silence that was waiting. During observation, there was a quiet hum of attention, a gentle tightening, a focus that held the body still. Now that focus loosens. The hum fades. What remains is space. The hands lower completely. The shoulders drop. The body shifts its weight. One foot moves slightly. The other follows. Stillness changes form. It becomes rest. The eyes wander without purpose. They do not search. They do not lock onto detail. They float. The world no longer asks to be interpreted closely. It exists again as background. The observer returns to being part of the landscape, not separate from it. The distance between observer and scene grows. This growth feels natural, comforting. Distance reasserts itself quietly. It does not announce its return. It simply resumes its place. Things are where they are. Far remains far. Near remains near. The hierarchy of space is restored. The binoculars, now unused, feel heavier, not in weight, in presence. They are clearly an object again, a thing held, not a conduit. The eyes no longer pass through them. Vision belongs solely to the body. This return is grounding. Seeing becomes effortless again. No alignment, no holding, no strain. Just open sight. The mind follows. Thoughts loosen. They are no longer tethered to a specific scene. They drift. The silence after observation is different from silence before it. Before, it was anticipatory. Now it is complete. Nothing waits. Nothing needs to happen next. The act has ended. The end is clean. There is no echo, no residue. The scene does not cling. It does not call back. You do not feel the need to look again. If you do, it will be a new moment, not a continuation. This separation matters. It allows closure. The world, now distant, feels larger again, not overwhelming, open, wide. The observer's place within it feels smaller. This smallness is calming. It removes pressure. You are not responsible for what you saw. You are not tasked with action. The binoculars did not assign meaning. They did not demand response. They simply showed. And now they are quiet. The eyes return to their habitual rhythm. They scan broadly. They accept blur. They accept ambiguity. They accept not knowing. The mind follows this acceptance. Questions dissolve. Interpretations soften. Nothing requires resolution. The body shifts again, a step forward, or back, or nowhere. Movement resumes without urgency. The pause has ended, but it ends gently. There is no snap, no cut, just a transition. The world does not feel reduced by the loss of magnification. It feels appropriate, proportioned. The binoculars did not improve the world. They offered a different angle. Now that angle is gone. And that is fine. The observer feels no disappointment, because the closeness was never owned. It was borrowed. Borrowed moments return easily. The silence deepens. Sounds that were muted return. Wind, distant movement, footsteps. They do not intrude. They settle. The eyes no longer isolate. They include. Everything shares space again. Foreground and background merge into a single field. The depth remains, but it is no longer emphasized. It exists implicitly, understood. The binoculars may be placed down, on a bench, on the ground, around the neck. They rest. Their task is finished. They do not continue working without the eyes. They do not retain images. They do not store memory. They hold nothing. This emptiness is appropriate. Objects should rest when not in use. The observer notices this rest. It signals permission. Permission to stop. Permission to disengage. Permission to be present without focus. The end of observation does not create absence. It creates openness. The world does not feel less interesting. It feels less insistent. Interest fades into neutrality. Neutrality is peaceful. The eyes grow softer. Blinking slows. The horizon reclaims its role as boundary. It no longer invites inspection. It invites rest. Looking at it now does not sharpen attention. It diffuses it. The gaze rests on distance without trying to penetrate it. This resting is important. It marks the true end. The binoculars, even if still visible, no longer define the moment. They have stepped aside. The act of seeing has returned to its simplest form. Light enters the eyes. Nothing else intervenes. The body accepts this simplicity gratefully. Complexity has passed. Clarity has passed. What remains is enough. The silence after observation holds no tension. It does not ask whether you saw enough. It does not question your choice to stop. It simply holds. The observer stands within this holding, not watching, not waiting, just being. Time stretches slightly, not because of anticipation, because nothing interrupts it. This uninterrupted time feels complete, whole. The end of looking creates a gentle boundary. Before, you were observing. Now you are not. Both states are valid. Neither demands the other. This balance prevents restlessness. You do not feel pulled back. You do not feel pushed forward. You are where you are. The world remains at a respectful distance. It does not approach. It does not retreat further. It stays. This staying is reassuring. It confirms that nothing depends on your gaze. The binoculars did not hold the world together. They only offered a temporary closeness. Now that closeness has ended, and the world remains intact. This realization is calming. It reduces the sense of importance. You are not central. You are not necessary. You are present. That is enough. The eyes may close briefly, not from fatigue, from ease. When they open again, nothing has changed. The scene remains distant, stable, unconcerned. The binoculars remain where they are, quiet, unremarkable. The gesture of putting them down completes itself. The moment seals, no loose ends, no unfinished seeing, just distance restored. Silence returned, the eyes back to themselves. the body free to move or not, the world once again at its own scale, and the observer released from the act of looking. This is how observation ends, not with disappearance, but with return. Return to distance, return to ordinary sight, return to quiet, return to the space where nothing asks to be seen closely, where the horizon resumes its place, and where the binoculars, having done their work, wait without urgency, while the world, unchanged, remains exactly where it was. When the binoculars are not in use, they are quiet. They do not hum. They do not glow. They do not prepare themselves. They rest on a table, on a shelf, around a neck, forgotten. Without eyes, they do nothing. This is their natural state. They are not waiting in an active way. They are not anticipating. They are not aware. They simply exist. The binoculars do not look on their own. They do not hold images. They do not continue scenes. When no one is watching, nothing is happening inside them. Glass reflects darkness. Metal holds its shape. The straps fall into still lines. They are complete in this stillness. Without a person, binoculars are empty, not broken, not unfinished, empty in the way objects are empty. They contain no intention. They do not desire use. They do not resist it either. They wait, but without patience or impatience. They wait because waiting is what objects do. The world does not move closer because binoculars exist. Mountains do not advance. Birds do not approach. The sea does not rise toward the shore. Nothing responds to the presence of the object. The binoculars have no influence unless they are lifted, and even then, their influence is limited. They do not pull the world forward. They rearrange light. That is all. When they are set down, that rearrangement ends immediately. The world returns to itself. Distance resumes its role. Space remains space. The idea that binoculars bring the world closer is misleading. They do not shorten distance. They do not collapse space. They only offer an image that feels nearer. The body remains where it is. The feet do not move. The ground does not change. Distance stays intact. This matters. It means that the binoculars never replace the world. They never replace walking. They never replace approach. They never replace presence. They offer a momentary translation, a temporary reading of space. Then they stop. The moment they stop, nothing is missing. The world does not feel reduced. It feels normal. This normality is important. It reminds us that the object was never essential. It was optional. The binoculars do not define experience. They supplement it briefly. When they are gone, experience continues without disturbance. The world does not rely on being seen. It does not require observation to exist. It does not alter itself based on attention. The binoculars confirm this by doing nothing when unattended. They do not observe for us. They do not stand in. They do not remember. They do not act. This passivity is their truth. They are tools, not agents. They do not contain meaning. They borrow it for a moment from the person who looks. When the person leaves, meaning leaves too. The binoculars return to being an arrangement of materials. Glass aligned with glass, metal shaped for holding. Nothing more. In this state, they are no different from other objects. A chair does not sit. A cup does not drink. A door does not open itself. The binoculars do not see. They are complete without function. This completeness is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not demand recognition. The binoculars can remain unused for long periods, days, weeks, years. Nothing changes inside them. They do not decay from lack of use. They do not grow restless. They do not anticipate. Time passes around them. Dust settles. Light shifts. They remain. This remaining is important. It shows that the object is not tied to urgency. It does not belong to speed. It belongs to availability. Available when needed. Invisible when not. This invisibility is gentle. It allows the object to coexist with silence. In a room at night, binoculars do not add light. They do not disturb darkness. They do not mark themselves as special. They blend. The room remains a room. The night remains night. Silence remains intact. The binoculars do not replace any of this. They sit within it. This is the final position of the object. Not active, not influential. Present, but not asserting presence. The world does not lean toward the binoculars. It does not organize itself around them. The binoculars must be lifted to matter, and even then, they matter only briefly. This brevity keeps them humble. They cannot hold attention indefinitely. They do not create dependency. They offer a service that ends cleanly. Clean endings matter. They leave no residue. When the binoculars are put down, the scene does not linger. It does not echo. It does not ask to be revisited. The memory fades gently. The object does not trap experience. It releases it. This release makes rest possible. There is no unfinished seeing, no unresolved closeness. Distance returns fully, and distance, once restored, feels right. Distance is not loss. It is structure. It gives shape to the world. Without it, everything presses in. With it, space breathes. The binoculars do not threaten this structure. They respect it. They touch it lightly, then withdraw. This restraint is their defining quality. They do not demand that distance be overcome. They acknowledge it. They work with it. They allow a look across it, not a crossing. When no one looks, distance stands unchallenged. The horizon remains the horizon. The far stays far. The near stays near. Nothing collapses. Nothing expands unnaturally. The world remains proportional. This proportionality is calming. It tells the body where it is. It tells the mind what to expect. The binoculars do not disrupt this when unused. They do not promise access. They do not whisper invitation. They are silent. Silence around objects is important. It prevents them from dominating. The binoculars do not call for attention. They wait for it. And waiting is passive. Waiting does not hurry. Waiting does not push. Waiting does not change the world. Waiting allows the world to remain. This is the final lesson of the binoculars. They are not instruments of control. They are instruments of pause. They do not extend the self into the world. They extend the world into awareness for a moment. Then they step aside, without complaint, without insistence. This stepping aside leaves space. Space for the eyes to rest. Space for the body to return to itself. Space for the mind to slow. The object does not follow the observer. It stays behind. It does not linger in thought. It does not occupy attention. It fades. This fading is gentle. It does not feel like absence. It feels like completion. The binoculars have no story of their own. They do not progress. They do not evolve in use. They do not change identity. They remain what they are. An object designed to be lifted. An object designed to be lowered. An object designed to be still. Between uses, they are nothing more than shape and weight. This neutrality is rare. Many objects today insist on relevance. They glow, they signal, they interrupt. The binoculars do not. They accept irrelevance. They accept dormancy. They accept silence. In doing so, they align with the night. At night, the binoculars disappear easily. They do not reflect much light. They do not shine. They recede. This recession mirrors their function. They allow seeing without approaching. They allow presence without participation. And when not used, they allow absence without loss. The world does not need to be seen constantly. It does not need to be examined. It does not need to be closer. It exists fully without attention. The binoculars, waiting quietly, affirm this truth. They are ready, but not necessary. The difference matters. Necessity creates pressure. Readiness does not. The binoculars are ready when asked, but they do not ask. This one-way relationship preserves calm. The observer controls the moment. The object does not. And when the observer is gone, the object returns to rest. Nothing is left open. Nothing continues. The binoculars do not hold the world inside them. They do not contain landscapes. They do not trap distance. They are empty glass. They are empty until filled by sight. And even then, they do not keep what they receive. They pass it through. Passing through is different from holding. Holding accumulates. Passing through releases. The binoculars release immediately. This immediate release prevents attachment. You do not feel bound to what you saw. You do not feel responsible. You do not feel compelled to return. You saw. Now you have stopped. Both states are complete. The object that waits teaches this quietly. By doing nothing. By being nothing more than itself. In the presence of such an object, the world feels stable. Not enhanced. Not diminished. Stable. The mountains do not depend on being magnified. The birds do not depend on being observed. The sea does not depend on being clarified. They exist in their own scale. The binoculars do not change that scale. They only momentarily align the eyes with it. Then they disengage. This disengagement is clean. No transition lingers. No echo remains. The object waits again. Waiting without awareness. Waiting without memory. Waiting without intention. The binoculars are not watching when no one looks. They are not listening. They are not sensing. They are not thinking. They are simply there. This simplicity is grounding. It reminds us that tools are not extensions of will. They are instruments of choice. Choice implies the ability to stop. The binoculars honor stopping. They honor stillness. They honor distance. In the end, nothing about the world has changed. The landscape remains where it was. The horizon remains distant. The space between observer and scene remains intact. Only one thing has occurred. Someone looked, and now no one is looking. The binoculars wait. The world continues. Distance holds. Silence remains. The binoculars did not bring the world closer. They only waited for someone to look.